The Indianapolis Colts have already made some major moves in free agency, but how will that affect how they approach the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft? My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and we've got another 3 round mock draft for you here for the Indianapolis Colts. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Colts do come this April. And Ryan, let's pull up the slide here. So we have them
Let's do
going
it.
Colston Loveland with the 14th overall pick. Might be a tad early, and there might be now, especially after some of the free agency moves and departures that we've seen, they can maybe go a different route as a whole. But I definitely think they're not going to go secondary now. I think they can address that position a little bit later. Tight ends is a very big need for them. And I think Colston Loveland comes in. One brings that kind of attitude. I think the Colts might be looking for overall in that offensive system. Could be
Mhm.
a binky for Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones to rely on over the middle, and also can help out in the run game. But I think one sneaky option here, though, too, is if you go look at some of the other potential options, maybe Gray Zabel's a guy that starts to rise a little bit more with Will Fries leaving in free agency and Ryan Kelly also as well. Really want to address that interior. And so, but to me now, I think with secondary definitely seems more like a second round, third round need, just where some of the overall players are valuing as a whole. Of course, it's too based off the internet's big board, so it's the gospel when it comes to the player overall rankings. But I think Colston Loveland here would be a good fit, hit an immediate need overall, and because I do think there is some separation between him and then like the other tight ends uh,
Yeah.
outside of Tyler Warren, who was taken at ninth overall in our mock draft.
Yeah, I do think you go look. He projects to have that Brock Bowers esque skill set. Not saying that he is Brock Bowers in any way, but he projects to
Yeah.
have that skill set, and so he's going to be a little bit more of a receiver, where Tyler Warren is going to line up a little bit more in line. With that being said, I still think Colston Loveland can line up in line and do some more tight end things rather than just receiver things. And I feel like the Colts getting him here, that's been a need that they've needed to fill for a while. They could go secondary. With that being said, they just signed Travarius Ward and Cam Bynum. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's pretty set, especially this high up. They could potentially maybe do something later in the draft, but for now, those positions seem pretty filled. The offensive line, so they did draft Tanner Bordellini last year in the 4th round. And then they have a few guys at right guard that could potentially fill in there for the losses that they've had with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. But we'll just kind of have to see as the draft goes on what they do. So
Mhm.
moving on to their next pick, we're going to get Alfred Collins, a defensive tackle from Texas. He's a guy who played all over the defensive line this past season, but I think his biggest attribute is I think he's going to bring some sturdiness and some run stuffing ability to this defensive line. Don't get me wrong, he definitely can still get up the field and get after the passer and be disruptive in that aspect. But I felt like outside of DeForest Buckner, this Colts team really struggled to stop the run, and when DeForest Buckner was not on the field, they really struggled in run defense. And so going and getting a defensive tackle here for this front, I think is going to be really important for them going forward.
Yeah, and I think that's one is I think just defensive line as a whole, and so they want to get another edge rusher that might fit their system overall. I think that could be a big thing, but just getting meteor up front, especially too if you go look at just like the AFC as a whole and how good
Yeah.
their some of the run teams are, and then if they want to compete with some of the top teams in the NFC, like just go look at if you end up having to play Philadelphia and Saquon Barkley, how are you going to stop that run? Even then to Atlanta as well with Bijan. So that's NFC, but then AFC, you got the same thing with Derrick Henry. You're going to have like that Bills great running game as well. And I'm sure there's even others that there's not immediately coming to my head as of right now. And so you're going to need to be able to stop that. And actually, too, I'm just realizing this is about that time where a lot of the second wave of like D lines coming off as there's 5 defensive linemen that came off in our
Yeah.
mock draft here.
This is a
But
hot
one
spot for edge rushers also.
exactly, but uh, and another option though too talked about the offensive line just on the interior. Donovan Jackson, I think, could be a real guy that they could draft and maybe be versatile on that interior. We saw him; he's really left guard a lot throughout his career. But when Josh Simmons went down at Ohio State, he kicked out to left tackle and did a really good job all things considered,
Yeah.
especially for an interior guy. So just a couple other options there as well. I think that they can go with. But then wrapping up here with the third round final pick, Jared Wilson, going to be the center out of Georgia. And I think once again, this kind of comes to like how much do they trust Tanner Bortolini? Is he going to be that center that they drafted, or Jared Wilson, who's the top pure center in this draft class as of right now? Replace Ryan Kelly, go from there. Maybe Tanner Bortolini kicks into the right guard spot where Will Freeze was at. So it's going to be interesting to see how they overall just evaluate that offensive line, because this is now definitely a much bigger need overall. I think that they're going to need to address within these first three picks. And there were options for them to maybe go secondary as a whole, but I think with just the big hole, the big loss from losing Ryan Kelly, a key veteran for that team, then also then to Will
Yeah.
Fries as well. Maybe if secondary maybe takes a back seat till day 3, an interior offensive line is something that jumps up as well. So with this draft overall, and well, actually, Ryan, before we get into that, what's your thoughts on Jared Wilson coming in here?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the best center in this class. Very rare story. I think he actually played his entire college career at Georgia. He was behind Cedric Van Pran, who was drafted last year, I believe, in the 4th round, and one that was a better class, so he fell a little bit further. But Jared Wilson came in and really stepped things up this season at that center position for Georgia. Definitely the most NFL ready center, I think, in this class. He's a really good athlete, so I think it's a good pick if they are not comfortable making that transition over to Tanner Bortolini. So we'll just kind of have to see going forward what the Colts do, because I feel like especially teams in this situation, you have to go more off of their actions rather than their words. So I'm interested right now. I think Jared Wilson could be a very big potential option for the Colts.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you look at this draft here, then you base off their moves overall, like going to get Cam Bynum, going to get Travarius Ward, those are, and then you get them to longer term contracts. And so longer term in quotes, you know what I mean? Like over the next several years. Not like these 10-year contracts like Patrick Mahomes or anything, but it's a big shot across the bow. Be like, no, we're really addressing this secondary position overall, and then the rest of that secondary room is really young, which is still on rookie contracts, which makes me think they're going to try and develop those guys, see who's the best guy overall, see who are other guys they maybe want to keep internally, and they can move on. And so with that, when I look at these first 3 picks for them, they like what's their clear biggest weakness, and that's going to be it's on the offensive side of the ball. It was tight end. Now I think you can maybe it's that right guard and center spot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are going to be 2 areas that they address. And then I look at that defensive side of the ball, like maybe they could go linebacker, but I think also too beefing up that defensive interior is going to be a route that they go. So I think they address that in these first 3 picks. And so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if it's in some sort of similar order as well. Or maybe they go defensive tackle, like go get Kenneth Grant. That's a name we thought that they could go and get there. And then let's say they get tight end Mason Taylor in the 2nd round also. So I think a lot of different ways they can navigate each pick.
Yeah, the other thing is if you don't like the Jared Wilson pick, I believe Tate Ratledge was taken like 2 or 3 picks earlier in our draft, and so I feel like you could go and just make a slight
Yeah.
move up and snag Tate Ratledge, who was that right guard for Georgia. So
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of different options for the Colts. They are a team. They're actually one of the harder teams to draft for because there is a lot of talent on this team. It just hasn't really come together yet fully for them. So I think that there hopefully is a bright future going forward for them if they can continue to improve on this young core. But for now, let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Colts 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.